This is an interesting question because I don't know how you get people to move and get out of their comfort zone and do things when either they don't want to, or there are maybe personal barriers that they must overcome in order for them to reach that breaking point. You know, how do you encourage others, including your students, to define their why and share their stories?
The way that I encourage others, and particularly my students, is by modeling. I think that before I ask anyone to share their story or even can coach them in connecting with their story, I have to model that behavior. I have to model that authenticity, that vulnerability. And I'll tell you, when I've told them just little bits of my story for 2-3 minutes, the connections that I've made with my students are amazing. And furthermore, the connections that they've made with themselves, I think, are very significant.
Barbara.
Oh boy, I've been sitting here typing something, so ask me again.
How do you encourage others to share their stories? You know, you work with teachers now as a coach. How do you encourage them to share their stories?
Oh, I'm a nudger. I don't stop. I know when I see somebody with a good story, I not only ask them, would you like to write a guest post? I go to their schools sometimes. I knock on their doors. I invite them on my podcast. I do whatever I can because I mean, when I met Dan online, I was like, I have to know him. I have to get to know him. He's got this wonderful thing he's doing. And Lindsay, I said, you want to go to South by Southwest with me? And Mike, do you want to do a presentation with me? And Nicole, we're friends. We're going to get together. And Will, I've known you for how long now? So
Several years,
I am one of the kind of people, and I was an introvert. That's what someone, something happened to me. I think I fell, broke my neck, changed my head. And all I realized is, wait a minute, there's so many wonderful people out there. I need to know their stories. So that's me.
Dan.
I really like what Nicole said with regards to modeling it. And we all have stories. And at least me, I take a lot of time to reflect on my stories. I try not to bury them and forget about them. I try to remember that I lived them and learned from them. And so I bring them to the classroom. And I agree with Nicole. I can't say it any better. That when you do it yourself, and you show your vulnerability, it opens up the opportunities for others to say, hey, this is kind of a safe environment. I mean, my instructor's up there doing it. If he can do it or she can do it, but I can do it. And the stories come out also. I do a lot of random seeding in the beginning of the year, and I ask them to tell their stories in some form or fashion to one another. And so I try to build a community right off the bat where they're talking, because too many classrooms, they don't even know each other's names at the end of the school year. And so telling stories, I think, is really about the environment that you create. And I agree with Nicole, it's about modeling it.
Awesome. Bring us home, Michael.
I think one of the things that I love to do, and we started really on day one in our classroom, putting students who they are and force them to put it out front. We have students on day one start creating a student portfolio using Google Sites, and on day one, they communicate and create a page about their passions. What are your interests? And simply put, rather than using their own words sometimes, we actually have them just grab some YouTube videos online of what connects to them. Just starting from day one, having a teacher who says, I want to know about you, not just fill out this worksheet and then we'll put it aside. And then we come back to these stories. They learn about themselves in terms of what drives their engagement, what type of representation helps them as a learner, and what's the best way to express themselves. So not just hearing their voice, but forcing them to act on that voice in terms of their choices they make, in how they learn and how they're going to express themselves in the classroom. And going beyond that to show them that physics really does and science connects their lives, we do in the class where it's actually aligned to the next generation science standards in terms of science practices, but they have free reign over what they want to learn about. So they spend time in the class digging into something that they're curious about or is already part of their life through a scientific framework. And then at the end of the year, instead of doing a sit down and take this 100-question final exam, their exam is doing a student showcase, project expo at night, where parents, stakeholders from the community come in and they get to share about what project they did and something that's deeply connected to them. And really being able to tell their stories as opposed to a parent-teacher conference or a Scantron exam is really powerful for them.